Wednesday night prime time. You already know what time it is, man. It's your boy Berto. It's your boy Broto. We have a very special guest, 929 The Game's very own Joe Patrick, joining us, reporting eligible live, like we do, man, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Joe, man, you report eligible, brother, man. You're on the
That's right.
spot, baby. You're
Reporting
on
into the
the
field.
show, man. Let's go, man.
That's
We're glad
Kevin
to have you.
Stefanski's job in training camp so far. He's the guy who says 75 is eligible, 75 is eligible, which is
Oh,
a
nice.
on one. That's usually who it is. Yeah.
Hey, man, make sure if you hear that, like, oh, I know a tandem that reports eligible every Wednesday night live, 8 p.m. And if you hit that subscribe button, you already know when the content is dropping. Again, I'm your boy Berto, joined by my guy, Bro Talk. But Bro Talk, man, what's going on? What's your day been looking like, man?
Oh, I'm playing catch up. Normally, I'm Johnny on the spot. I know what Joe has said throughout the day, what Flick has said throughout the day, but I'm a little behind today just because work was a little hectic today. But I'm happy to have Joe here. Happy to talk Falcons football, and we're 2 days away from our first preseason game under the new regime, so it's real exciting.
Also, a lot of exciting things coming out. The depth chart came out today. Tua being the quarterback starting for this one. The depth chart. We got to
the communication team apparently sent it out. The depth chart.
Yeah. Kevin Stefanski said it's Matt's depth chart, which is one of the communication staffers there.
Oh man,
we love Matt.
But man, we got to hear from Joe. Joe, how have you been, man? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Hoping all is well with you, man. Fill us in. What you been up to, man?
I've been good. I apologize. I was taking the last bite of my dinner there.
Hold on. He's got to know. He's got to know. This is not a show that frowns upon eating. I eat every night. My wife usually brings me a meal during the show. So you eat away, my friend.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, it was an afternoon practice today, which we've had, a couple now, maybe 2 or 3, whatever it is. So, and then I had to run an errand on my way home. But a good, it was a good practice day. Short, doing some situational stuff, but I think for that reason, kind of, I don't know if I would call it exciting. It would be exciting for anybody who goes, but when you've been there every day, things start to run together a little bit, and you get a little delusional, especially in the 90-plus degree days in the afternoons. But no, I can't complain. It's good. And, with the preseason game on the horizon on Friday, it just makes it all feel, a lot more real. And especially with the starters playing, which is, I think, like such a breath of fresh air for Falcons fans, who for the longest time have wanted to see the starters go in preseason and haven't been able to. So it will be good for everybody to see them, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Friday.
That's certainly exciting. Certainly exciting. Obviously, we talked a little bit, before we went on air, the Tua situation. Tua named the starter for right now. That's, unofficial, so to say, but he is the most QB ready right now. Him, Jack Strand, obviously Michael Penix Jr. still working his way back from his magnificent ACL that he has, as we all saw the press conference earlier today. But can you touch on Tua and what he's looked like recently? And I'll take a quote from Daniel. Shout out to Daniel for all the fantastic work that he does. The last couple training camps or sessions Tua has looked the best version of himself. And now this is something that's obviously, music to our ears. We need to know what the quarterback situation is going to look like, obviously with the season right around the corner. What has Tua looked like to you in your perspective, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been solid. It's interesting just for me as a reporter who's been fortunate to be out there for the last several years to watch, a bunch of different quarterbacks now. A lot of them, not so great. But like even last year, like we saw Michael Penix, like having a crazy camp, in my opinion. Like every day of practice, he was hitting at least one, but more like 2, like big explosive plays, like 40, 45 yards downfield, just like kind of dropping it in the bucket. Clearly, that doesn't necessarily translate to is going to be, a great quarterback throughout an entire NFL season where you have so many variables to deal with over the course of it. And so I think, like, when I look at Tua, first of all, I just think of, like, his, the veteran experience that he has, both positive and negative. He's obviously been through the lows, which I feel like have gotten a lot of publicity, obviously because it's kind of the more recent experience that he's had there in Miami, but he's also had the positive experience, of taking a team to the playoffs, of having led the NFL in passing yards. So he probably understands, like, what a good offense looks like, what is needed to have those explosive plays that obviously those teams in Miami were so known for. And for how he's looked, it's interesting. I don't think it's been like lights out. I think he's had his, fair share of bad reps and things like that, but he's also had a lot of good reps. You can see that he is a quarterback that, I've seen a lot of people call him like a one-read quarterback, basically, where he wants to get it out on time to the guy that he's intending it for pre-snap. And you do kind of sense that. Like, I've noticed that he just kind of tends to hold on to the ball for a long time when things don't look like, at least to my eye, have gone according to plan on a given play. But I would also say that I don't think I've seen a quarterback that's been as effective as he's been, like just throwing those little darts, like 12, 15 yards down the middle of the field, that are not even like fastballs. They're just they're just nice little perfect catchable balls for these receivers on the inbreakers to be able to grab. And I think that those kinds of passes are especially going to benefit, a wide receiver like a Zachariah Branch, because he creates that separation. And then the ball comes in at just like such a nice kind of pace and accuracy, it's easy for him to pluck that thing out of the air and go, as opposed to, I feel like sometimes with like a hard thrower, they really got to really focus on actually catching the ball first, and it kind of can potentially limit them when they're trying to get those yards after the catch. So, he's got to be accurate. He's got to be, that quarterback that does not turn the ball over. But if he can be that guy, and I don't know if he will or not, he's thrown some interceptions in this camp, and so we'll just see how it plays out. But I think the Falcons are in good hands with the two quarterbacks that they have, at least like as much as they could be given the circumstances around the team.
So with that, you mentioned, you've been doing this for quite some years, right? Post Matt Ryan era, you've seen your fair share of revolving door. There's always this level of optimism with the Falcons fandom, right? We always feel like we're that one player away, mainly being the quarterback. So with both quarterbacks that you're seeing, if both can live up to their potential, is that level of optimism to actually be competitive, like realistic to you from what you're seeing?
I mean, yeah, I think if you get the quarterback performance from this team, and I mean, there's other reasons why I think this team can improve where they've been. But obviously, so much is reliant on the quarterback, so you have to get that. But I'm even thinking also about like special teams. I just feel like special teams has been upgraded this year in a lot of different facets. But I really like, what they have in the return game with Zachariah Branch and the special teams coach. But, it's funny. I was actually talking to, I was talking to Arthur Smith about this way back when he was the head coach. And we were just having a conversation actually about Russell Wilson. And I believe he was still in Denver, and he had the awful season in Denver the one year, and then he came back, and not good, but better at that point. And he was just like, he's just not turned the ball over as much. Like otherwise, it's pretty much the same, which is like, kind of a quarterback at the tail end of his career. But the point was that if you just kind of don't turn the ball over as a quarterback in the NFL, and especially on this Falcons team that has Bijan Robinson and such an effective offensive line and running attack, that's kind of I think that's the Stefanski game plan, is to not make it so that the whole thing is reliant on that quarterback, just to have the quarterback do enough. We always talked about Desmond Ridder as like, you just need him to come in and kind of be a point guard and distribute the ball around. And I feel like that hasn't really changed, because you still have all these playmakers that they intended for him to kind of be the point guard of, like I said. But if Tua can be that guy, I think that it should be a very effective offense. And in this division, you would think that it's there for the taking, basically, if they're able to do that.
Now, with Michael Penix obviously being on the sidelines for now as he's recuperating from his ACL injury, do you get a sense from the organization that, that MPJ is their guy? And if Tua, and we talked about this before we went on air, like how short of a leash do you feel that Tua would be in when the season starts? Is it a situation where we'll ride it out to see how far he can take us, or once the wheels start falling off, we're going with MPJ? Is that the sense that you get from the organization, or from Stefanski's standpoint of things?
Honestly, and this is going to probably upset some people or make some people maybe sad, but like, no, I actually don't think that they're all that like invested in Penix specifically. I think if Tua plays well and the team is winning, like, they're not going to change. I don't think they're going to change the quarterback. Now, they could, like Penix could get an opportunity because of an injury. Obviously, Tua's had his fair share of those. And, I think at this point in the NFL, you kind of have to expect your quarterback is going to get hit and potentially miss some time. But ultimately, I don't think that it's necessarily a situation for the Falcons. And I'm not saying this is my opinion. I'm saying that this is what I think they think, is that they're not like, we need to see Michael Penix for 4 games this season to make sure we know what he is. Like, I just don't think it's like that. I think that, this organization is desperate to win. They want, and they want to win. And this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, guys, because I would agree with a lot of people where, like, obviously, yes, if you can win 11 games, go do that. But if you're not going to win 11 games, you're probably better off winning 4 games, frankly, so that you can make that longer term investment. But I think this organization is not looking to do that. They are looking to win 11 games, and they want to, produce success. And I always think back to Matt Ryan, and what he was saying when he had his introductory press conference and talking about why he wanted to come to the Falcons. And he was like, you just want to have that result. You want to feel the result on Sunday. And obviously he's not wanting to feel a loss. It's like Matt Ryan's not coming in here to oversee like a team that's just going to stink it up and have fans pissed and the stadium empty. Like, no, they want to turn that whole thing around and turn around the narrative of what the Atlanta Falcons are, especially on a national stage. Like, I was talking to somebody about this in the media room today where they were kind of saying that the Falcons have like the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. And it's like, no, that's definitely not true.
Correct.
But I can see why a national person would just say that, because you can just talk crap about the Falcons because they've been bad for so long and nobody's really going to push back. In fact, that's actually the safer like thing to say, if you just kind of want to fly under the radar as a pundit, to just say like, oh yeah, Falcons are going to suck, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's much more bold to like come out and say that, be nuanced basically about an opinion. But I'm getting far afield here. But all that to say is that this team wants to win. And so they're obviously, Tua's going to be the week 1 starter. And he will continue to be the starter until they see, the trajectory of the team going in a way that they want to reverse, because they want to win more games. And that's when they would make a switch.
So the question begs then, I think I know the answer, but I think the people want to hear it. Everyone just automatically assumes, like you said, on the national media side of things, right, looking from, outside in, that Ian Cunningham and Kevin Stefanski and Matt Ryan are prepared to just stink it up this year. It doesn't feel that way from my perspective, or that's the way I view it. Can you agree with that they fully intend to go all in and win football games because they truly believe that they have the pieces to do so? Is that safe to assume?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Now, I do think that there is a nuance between how Kevin Stefanski goes about, leading this team and trying to win games versus the way that Ian Cunningham, I think, has been forced to construct this roster with a lot of 1-year contracts, with not going out there and spending a ton in free agency. And that's all like, and so when you have a roster that's limited in that way from the talent, that's going to just limit your overall potential in general. But the task of the coach and the players and all the coaches are still going to be out to go out there and put the best stuff on tape, right? To put the best film out there, because they all have jobs, they all have livelihoods. They're position coaches are potentially going to get let go after the season if their room does poorly. So nobody wants that. So it's just very interesting when you kind of because I get it. Like, I get the mentality of like. Maybe derogatory, like the Madden player, basically, of like, yes, let's suck and get a great picks. Let's trade our whole team away, basically, and just like rebuild the whole thing from the bottom. But it takes a lot of like built up credibility in the organization to be able to do that towards your fan base, to like for them to have faith that you're doing the right thing and that, frankly, the product is still going to be one that's that appeals to fans. And I don't think the Falcons are in that place. And so like I think that they're very desperate to win. But they're desperate to win emotionally, but like Ian Cunningham I think has been very prudent in not being so desperate that he's going and like mortgaging the future just so they can like, win 10 games this year.
I feel like you're talking about someone else that used to be here on their last year. But we'll touch on that maybe a little later. But so with Ian Cunningham, right, like you said, he wants to be prudent. He wants to make sure that we have long-term sustainable success. Even though they were 1-year deals, like you said, it's easy to dunk on the Falcons. Don't you feel like the guys that he did bring in still elevate the team as a whole, even though they're on 1-year deals, maybe they earn a contract elsewhere, because something that just continues to hit home for me is Ian Cunningham. Draft capital is like his currency. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if these 1-year deal players go off and sign this nice contract with another team, doesn't that benefit us in the long term? Because now the scouting department gets to flex their muscles with those rookies that they bring in. And now you got those cheaper contracts rolling in, right?
That's
so
right.
Am I safe to, like everything I'm saying, am I safe to assume that and tell the audience that yes, Ian wants to win, but ultimately he wants that long-term success?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like you want these players who you just sign 1-year contracts to show out because maybe you believe in them and you want to sign them long term, or to your point, they sign elsewhere and you get some draft pick compensation for that. So there's definitely a way to grow the team there. But I also think that you can make shrewd signings in a way that's going to fit kind of the game model of the coach and the offensive coordinator that can still like elevate the team from where they were last year. And especially with, Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator, it just never felt like the pieces were really kind of like round pegs and round holes, like there was, it was like he was trying to implement something that he was familiar with from, going back to LA or whatever. And maybe he was also trying to adjust in some certain ways with, like the status of Kirk Cousins, like his health status in that first year and all these kind of moving parts. But it feels to me like there's a lot more of like a very focused idea of what this team is and how they should be playing on the field. And it's funny to say that because I feel like when this coaching staff was brought on, it was kind of like, okay, Kevin Stefanski, he's like, it's kind of like warm milk, it's just like, and then like Tommy Rees, what? But like, I do feel like they have a very good idea of how to use these players. And
so you're saying
boy,
the coaches with the players that they have are molding it to where everyone will be successful. Essentially,
yes,
like you said, circle, not the square in the circle type deal.
Yeah, I think they're gonna maximize, what the strengths of the team are, like the offensive line and bringing in Bill Callahan to work with some of these guys. I think Bijan Robinson is going to potentially have, like he had 2,300 yards last year, so like I think he could have more this year, frankly. Like, I mean, if he can stay healthy as he's been, because I think like in the screen game with what this team is doing, I think he could absolutely feast. I think with the with the gap scheme stuff, like I think the gap scheme stuff that teams don't have, the Falcons on tape doing, and Bijan kind of running. I think that there's opportunities for him there, and we know how good he is anyway. Just like in the bread and butter outside zone stuff, like there's nothing Bijan Robinson's bad at, but I think that this staff has a good idea of how to accentuate him. And Kevin Stefanski certainly has worked with a bunch of great running backs in his careers.
Wait, hold on. What is this? Where's this coming from? Berto is obsessed with his own face.
Because you keep taking the camera down and it's your face. But Joe, like you're getting me amped, okay? Yeah. You're getting me amped to see an offense that we haven't seen since probably 2017 when we made the playoffs and we actually won a playoff game and we're this close to taking down the eventual Super Bowl champs. Like it just, I don't know. I'm a feel guy, right? It just feels different, right? Mm-hmm. The clear, like you said, the clear vision of Kevin Stefanski. I was all on board when Cleveland let him go. I was like, that's the guy. Mm-hmm. Forget John Harbaugh. Give me Kevin Stefanski, because I felt like he would retain Jeff Ulbrich, which I'm thankful he did. There's your continuity, and now you're bringing an offensive staff that can actually, like you said, work with what they've got and make them successful. So what Joe Patrick was saying, guys, good luck Tampa fans with your offense. Nonetheless, I digress.
I do still think the team is thin. I do still think that injuries at certain positions could really hamper them. But going into the season, like I feel good about the top end talent the Falcons have, and I just think that the fans are going to be relieved at just like aesthetically how the offense looks. And I don't know if that was a big deal for anybody else, but like for me, just like the aesthetics of the pistol are just like off in some way, right. Like running stretch from the pistol is just it's crazy, gross, So I like that. Like it's funny. I had this kind of hit me one day at practice when I was just like watching the quarterbacks run through some drills, and they're running like they're just doing some footwork on some like run plays basically, and they're running like counter toss. So they're like turning and they're kind of like doing that thing where they show the ball up in the air and then kind of, lay it down like that for like a counter. It's like, wow, I haven't seen that run here in a couple years at least.
Wow, that's awesome.
awesome.
Breaking news in the NFC South, guys. Darren Waller to the Carolina Panthers.
Wow.
Not
1 year deal.
That's cool.
Just so everyone knows.
Was he playing last year?
Yes, he was with the Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
Him and Tua were connecting like crazy.
That's right.
He turned him into a red zone machine. Yeah, we got a guy that I think we could do the same thing.
On that point, that is a big difference I noticed between Tua and Penix is Tua in the red zone is just so much more effective. Like he's able to layer the balls in, and it's kind of a feature of him not having that cannon on his left shoulder, as they both do. But he's just able to just kind of like drop them in on that back kind of rung of the end zone there. Penix, connected nicely with I think Drake on like a corner route a couple practices ago. But you can even see in that replay, it's like the pass is just like open on a straight line, and he kind of just guns it in there. Every time he tries to kind of like put a little arc on it, it's almost always sailing out over the end zone uncatchable.
So I'm gonna kind of Berto go on this tangent. Alex Van Pelt has been a big talking point on this show. Like, can you already see an impact? Because I feel like Michael truly is trying to get better in that essence. At least that's what I see or think. Can you just kind of share? Are you seeing that from Alex Van Pelt? Because we can go back. You mentioned Desmond Ridder. Everyone talks about the quarterback coach. Is Alex Van Pelt's presence truly helping those guys? Not just Michael, but everyone in that room.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and like honestly, I don't really have a great feel for exactly how that works, except for just asking the players, and we were just talking to Penix this afternoon after practice, and he was just heaping praise on Van Pelt because he's got so much experience and has been around so many great players. I know they're working really hard on Penix's footwork, just kind of working on that under center stuff, but it certainly seems like he's just kind of passing everything with flying colors in that respect. I think you guys probably saw, Tommy Reese was on one of the mic'd ups. He's like, dude, you love under center. You love being under center.
A little jab right there.
A little jab right there, man.
But I think it speaks well to Penix and being able to pick that stuff up. Or to be fair to Penix, like he has not been asked to do that kind of thing in quite a while, and especially doing it coming off an injury. So I hope to see him progress. I don't think Van Pelt. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually improve him as a quarterback in terms of like the accuracy numbers, which were poor for Penix last year. But that's more of like we'll see when Penix is kind of out there in the fire, playing 11 on 11. But it was interesting to me. This is kind of aside from like how much he's improving these guys, but Van Pelt, made a comment because we talked to him yesterday, and he was like talking about these reps that they're getting, like Tua getting the 11 on 11 reps and Penix getting the 7 on 7 reps. He was like, Penix has been great, but he's not playing. Like these aren't not. I don't want to like misquote him, but I'm paraphrasing here. He said something like, "These aren't like real reps." Basically, like when you don't have guys like flying around you, it's not really real. Now he said he's still been making great throws. Like love what he's doing in 7 on 7, but they're going to need to see that translate to being in that kind of eye of the storm, and it affects quarterbacks for sure.
You just briefly mentioned Tommy Reese. We name dropped him already twice. How's he looked so far in training camp? A guy that hasn't. Go ahead.
Is he going to be on the field or in the booth?
Oh, that's a great question. We actually haven't asked. I asked Stefanski today if he was going to actually call the plays, because a lot of times these coaches will want to like delegate. Use the preseason to like let some assistant coaches get some experience doing that kind of stuff. But Tommy Reese will call the plays. But I didn't even ask if he's going to be on the field. I think he probably. Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well,
do we know where he did it in Cleveland?
I think he was on the field.
He was on the
I think he was on the field, but he also was in the booth when he was at Notre Dame. So
college was he?
Yeah, right. So that's why I'm curious. And it was also another little jab at someone else.
It seemed like the players really liked the offensive coordinator being on the field with them, so that they could kind of have some better communication.
What does he look like thus far? In early in training camp, like what's his energy been? I know we got just a snippet from Mic'd Up, right? These coaches are uncanny. They say they're unfiltered. They say what they want to say. But is he the next up and coming OC? Would you say? Well, making his rounds.
We'll
around the
see.
National Football League,
I certainly
right?
hope he is. We'll see. I will say this, and like, there's not a lot for me to go off of
Yep.
with him and this team, obviously, because they haven't been able to put anything on the field yet. But like, just in the demeanor, it's like almost a total opposite from what Zach Robinson. I mean, like Zach. Listen, like personally, I
Poor
like Zach.
Zach.
Like Zach was like. Zach was like a California cool kind of personality, you know, just kind of chill, laid back.
I don't
But
vibe in
that's
the South,
maybe
baby.
not good for
Oh.
like.
I don't vibe in the
coach.
South.
Like, that's a nice guy. That's a nice guy. But is he
Aw.
like a leader of men? You know, like is he kind of like
Right.
garnering the respect of like all the players? And Tommy Reese is like very sharp. Like when you talk to him, you're immediately like, this guy's intense. Like he's not here to mess around. And we haven't gotten to
Like
talk
that.
to him a ton, but
Yep.
everyone that we talk to, all the players are like, the guy's a football genius. Like they really, and they did not say that. They did not say that before. They would say maybe other complimentary things, but
Yeah.
I really believe them when they say that he knows what he's doing, and I like to see that kind of fire in the eyes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that hence the question, because I've heard some of those quotes and from some other media outlets saying, you know, that Tommy Reese is potentially the next guy, the next up and coming OC due to his vast football knowledge. But as another guy here on Reporting Eligible, we hone in, we key in on coaching, because as we all know, coaching does matter. And in the offseason, we also brought, you know, Tanner Estrin, you know, former OC of the New York Jets. You know, his concept of what he's going to bring. Are we already seeing these concepts mesh with Tommy Reese's philosophy and Kevin Stefanski? Because, you know, it was a little bit of a toss-up last year in regards to how fluidly the wide receivers can get open and how their space and things like that. What are you seeing early on in camp out of that situation with Tanner?
Well, Ingstrin, obviously, like when I think about Ingstrin, I think of like Ben Johnson, basically, like that kind of system. That's where he was, and that's and when I think about Ben Johnson, I think, frankly, about an Arthur Smith kind of like idea of a team, which with, at least with like in breaking routes, trying to attack the middle of the field, and that's what we're seeing a lot of. It's one of the reasons why I think, you know, outside of the health stuff with the quarterbacks, like I just think Tua is so much more effective at targeting those areas of the field, and I think that the receivers that they have in that room, I think, are like kind of were brought in with the idea of they can run after the catch on a drag, a little like, you know, in break, you know, a 10-yard dig or something like that. And if Tua can hit those little timing routes to those guys, then, you know, I think that's what this offense will be. It was interesting just today, as a matter of fact, and I don't normally get to see these guys up close, like this up close, but just the way they were practicing, Reese and Ingstrin were kind of standing near where media were, and because they were doing some situational stuff, it was like a 2-minute drill or whatever, and they're standing next to each other, and Tommy Reese is like, he's not really focused on like the performance of the team necessarily. He's like looking at his play sheet, like calling plays and trying to like communicate with Tua over the walkie-talkie. And Engstrand is like his fellow cop or whatever, and he's like getting like not getting on guys, but just saying like, we need like you know, just like kind of giving guys some like really stern like correction on like how a route was run or whatever it was. So it feels like those guys are like working really tightly in tandem.
Well,
Man, that's awesome.
so you're saying, I'm just going to continue this train. So you're saying we upgraded from Zach Robinson and TJ Yates. You can be honest. It's okay.
Yeah, I think so personally. That's just my opinion, but yes, yeah, I think so. I think so. And it's, I mean, we don't have to go into it, but like, it's fascinating what's going on in Tampa. Like,
oh, go ahead, please do. Go ahead, go into it.
They wanted, like, that they saw that, we're like, let's
bring them over here.
Maybe it's because they were killing Tampa. I don't know if that was the reason,
Right.
Seemed like the only team they were killing.
Well, I always tell people this, like, and I'm sure maybe you thought the same thing. I'm not going to imply this, but you can agree or disagree. It felt like the quarterback said, just Bijan. It felt like Zach Robinson did that a lot. It's like, just Bijan Robinson. And I think his success was mainly because Bijan Robinson could make something out of nothing. Could you agree to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the other thing, and this is purely kind of just speculation on my part, but I'm just trying to piece together like how basically this happened. But he was a quarterbacks coach for Matthew Stafford in LA, and it's like being a coach with Michael Jordan. Now, granted, Phil Jackson was like a great coach, so maybe this is like the wrong example, but I think sometimes when you're playing with or when you're coaching such a great player, and I think that player can kind of paper over a lot of cracks, and then you have to go kind of start anew and teach literally, a rookie quarterback, how to like be doing things. And there's probably some things that he instructed Stafford to do, and Stafford either kind of could intuitively kind of pivot away from some things, or just figure out solutions on the field on his own, that these other guys can't do, and that maybe Zach was never realized he needed to coach guys in certain ways. And basically what I'm just trying to say is that like his life was probably a lot easier as a coach with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. And we found out how difficult life can get as an NFL coach when you don't have that kind of talent and that kind of experience at your disposal.
So you're saying like guys like what was his name?
Every time it's like, so you're saying.
So what you're saying is all these guys that Matt Ryan got a job for when he was playing as head coaches, that's kind of a similar situation where it's like Matt was able to overcome some of their deficiencies as a coach. It's kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah,
for the Falcon fans in viewing this show.
Well, and on Matt Ryan, I think that he's a really important figure in all this, right? Because like he understands what it takes to play quarterback, obviously, but just like what it is that makes a good coaching staff, like what players need, and it really helps to have that kind of understanding at the very top of the organization.
So he gives that perspective per se to Ian and Kevin, because correct me if I'm wrong, neither of them were ever like truly in an NFL locker room as a player, but Matt was.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. And it's not even like Matt like dictating or like instructing like what they need to be doing or how they need to be coaching or anything, but like it's having football conversations, like these are all football guys, and like the more perspective you can get on the game, especially from somebody who's experienced it so much like Matt Ryan has, that's going to be so beneficial for everybody in that building.
I'd love to hear it, man.
I would like to say that Dan Mans is on to something here. He also had Jalen Ramsey at his peak, so we'll digress. Okay, I'm done taking shots. My bad.
It's tough.
My bad. Okay.
Man, we're gonna stay on the offensive side over here, but not your type of offense, bro. Talk, not that type. But we obviously have added speed in the offseason, re-signing Olamide Zaccheaus, but bringing in Zachariah Branch in the third round. What has he looked like? Is he the real deal? Now, this is some serious speed. I know Zaccheaus has speed as well, but man, what we've seen, from you, from Flick and stuff like that, the little postings. This kid is fantastic. He's phenomenal, man. So what does he look like to you in person, man? Is this a kid that can have impact day numero uno on this Falcons offense, man?
100%. I mean, like, it's really exciting to have a player like this, right? Like a player that has that kind of speed and burst and quickness that you feel like has the ability to just take any play to the house, But it's not even that in and of itself. It's not like you're just looking for him to do house calls. Like it's getting the ball to him on a quick screen and just letting him use his speed to pick up 7 yards to get you in a good down and distance. It's some of those things as well where he can be really useful. And a couple things that are notable about him outside of just like what people have seen on film, whatever has been posted. One of them is just the way that players and the coaches talk about him. Like we were talking to Robert Prince, the wide receivers coach today, and he was like, he's going to be special. And like other players say that too. And I don't think that, especially a coach, I don't think for a rookie would like go out and say that unless they really felt like there was something there with this kid, And by the way, for his part, for Zachariah's part, it's very interesting. He's had a very professional mentality for a long time. Like he talked to us about how when he was 13 years old, I believe it was that he said, he was not he didn't have have chores per se. I mean, he didn't have an allowance. He had a contract. He signed a contract with his dad to get workouts in. He was drinking protein shakes when he's 13, 14 years old. His dad's like a professional Olympic like lifter and trainer. Okay. So and so he actually homeschooled as well for at least a year so that he could do extra morning weightlifting, all while he's a kid. So he's had this very professional mentality about him. And the other thing that really kind of excites me for his potential this year, especially with the Falcons, is the way that Tua, the person who's going to be delivering them the football, has talked about him, which is that he's always open. He's like, whenever I'm going through my progression, he's open. And the reason he's open is because he's got that ability to create separation, with his quickness. And again, combining that with, I think, what they're scheming up with all this in-breaker stuff over the middle, I just think that there's going to be big opportunities for him. But Robert Prince said today, the wide receivers coach said, when we've seen the short routes, the bubble routes, et cetera, at Georgia, and the Falcons will use that for sure, but they're going to open up the book with him and the route tree and get him downfield. And he's caught many downfield passes for big gains. I think, no, it wasn't in the linear practice, but he's done that quite a bit. He's been an effective downfield receiver.
I'd like to stay on the offensive side for one more talk because we've got a O-line advocate in the chat, and I think he'll be really excited for us to talk O-line, okay? My first question, let's talk about Bergeron's contract. What was the initial reaction from everyone in the building? Because I thought they were going to let him play out and see, hey, let's see if you're worth, per se, an extension, right? But signing this highest paid guard contract up until Peter Skoronski, it was like, yeah, we believe in this guy. Like, what was, I guess, your reaction, the building's reaction, and then, what are you seeing from the coaching staff, the way they talk about Berge?
Well, we were obviously all very shocked. I know there was one guy in the media room who was like, and I'm sure a lot of people thought this, like, oh, this is Bijan's contract. And it's like, no, it's Matthew Bergeron.
That's what I thought
too. Man. Yeah. So, but just goes to show just like how big the number was and how surprising that was. And I'll say, it is still not like worrisome, I guess, but I just feel like it's going to be, it feels now like it's going to be hard for him to live up to that number. And people are going to look at that number that he's getting and just be like, man, we're paying a guard this much money. That hurts, even though he could be a good player. And if you're Chris Lindstrom, who the Falcon was also, I think he was the highest paid guard when the Falcons did that deal. At least he's like, okay, this guy's legit, the best in the NFL or one of the best in the NFL at that time. And Bergeron's not in that caliber. He's not considered to be in that caliber of guard yet. I will say this though, the thing that kind of gives me solace in it is that they did this deal after Bill Callahan got his hands on him for 3 months, and got to work with him in a summer program.
Well, that was gonna be my follow up. Do they think he will live to his potential now with this new offensive system, gap scheme type deal?
Yeah,
is that what the sense
I
you
think
get?
so. I mean, clearly, that's clearly why you pay the guy, and I think the why you do it now is because you do have that confidence, and you don't want to get in a situation where you're potentially, having to bid against other teams if he reaches free agency. Obviously, there would be a time where they could re-sign him before he gets to free agency after the season. But I just think that they felt confident enough that the price tag would only go up, frankly, which is kind of crazy to say. But then you look at the Skoronski deal, and I start to wonder, is the price tag just going to start going up on some of these guys?
Quentin Nelson is due for a contract. He's still playing at an all-pro level. Kevin Dotson of the Rams. I looked at the contracts, who is up? Why? Because the way we view it, right, and we talked about Bryce Johnson and Ian Cunningham as a duo, is they're looking forward to make sure when these deals are done, you go down 2 years down the line, and the player they just paid is kind of in the middle of the pack. So,
and I know, Bro Talk, for you, I know that this is something that you have been liking to see with some of these contracts. I think that the way that these contracts are getting structured, though, is friendly to the Falcons, where it's going to give them time to restructure the contract before it's up, so they're not paying this huge sum at the end of it, and they're going to be able to basically, if you want to fully flex your financial ability, you actually have to have some credit. You have to have that's the way it works. It's not just whatever is in your bank account is all the money you have. You actually have potential amounts of money that are out in the future that is worth flexing on if it's for the right player that is going to be here long term. And I think that's really what the deal means for the Bergeron and the Falcons, is that he is going to be an Atlanta Falcon for a very long time.
Hopefully. Now I'm gonna move from the left side to the right side, right? Okay. The quote unquote blind side now. So Ethan, on how do you say his last name? I always butcher it.
I've been saying like Onionwa or Onionwa, but like Onionwa seems kind of easy.
So we've seen the uptick of the first team reps, and Stefanski, I saw the quote saying, he's making rookie mistakes as rookies should, right? Mm-hmm. No one expects them to be perfect, but like now that Callahan, like you said, with Bergeron's gotten his hands on him for 3 months, like, have you seen progression in the right direction? Is this someone that everyone always loves those 7th round steals, right? Howie Roseman's been known with them. Jordan Mailata, the biggest one that everyone knows. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he could be like this all-pro guy, but is this someone that we could see on the team long-term, whether it's a swing tackle role or potentially just a solid starter?
Yeah. It's funny, actually. We were talking to Bill Callahan earlier this summer in the offseason program, and I asked him some question about, like, how do you kind of balance, like, wanting to have continuity on the offensive line versus, like, wanting to try to, blood some of these younger guys and get them involved. And his answer actually, like, kind of didn't really touch on that as specifically as I asked it, but basically what his answer alluded to, like, our job as an offensive line coach, outside of like designing the run game and kind of like making sure our guys know what they're doing, but in terms of development, is to just like make guys at like an Onionwa level, like late round picks, undrafted free agents, to build them up so that they are usable in the NFL as an NFL player. Like, if we needed them to start, then they can start. And the whole point, and his whole point, is like to help the salary cap, basically, to like help alleviate some cap, because you can't really pay every single one of your offensive linemen like at the market value. If you're doing that, you're just going to be left with not enough resources to spend on the rest of the football team, especially with the way that these quarterback prices are going up and how desperate teams are to lock them down. So that's the way I see Onionwa at this point, which is that like they're building him up to be a serviceable player for them. And I think that if he can be a guy who is a swing tackle or, coming in jumbo situations to be like a tight end eligible guy, that's good. That's good progress for them. I don't think that they want him starting at right tackle for this team. Like he's been doing in practice the last couple of days. When I've watched him, like, he has some good reps and he has some bad reps. It's a little scary that, like, I mean, I shouldn't say scary, but like, that's the best that the Falcons have, I think, or at least that's what it seems like. The coaches are determining the fact that he is getting the starting roles, and like Michael Jarrell, Brandon Walton haven't necessarily been able to nail that spot down as their own in Juwan Taylor's absence. But that's the goal for players like Onionwa and the rest of these guys. James Brockermeyer, whoever it is like, can you build them up so that they are serviceable NFL linemen? Not the best, but, up there. And I think that's why they wanted to take a shot on Onionwa specifically, is because he's got that 6'7", 330 frame. Like, that's the mold that Bill Callahan wants.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense, because when I saw that pick come through, I was like, who?
Yeah, same here. I'm an Ohio State. I got an Ohio State. Well, you can't see it right there. That's an Ohio State,
you're an Ohio State guy.
And I was like, who is this guy?
Wow.
And I was like, shit, am I a bad fan? I don't know who this guy is. And then I was like, oh wait, he never played. Like he literally didn't make any starts for Ohio State.
That was Damsky's reaction too. Like, well, who was that?
Yeah. He played some like special team snaps, and he played a little bit. But I looked into him more, and apparently he was. And I don't really like follow the recruiting and the transfer stuff all that much in college football, just because I've got other stuff going on. But like, apparently he was like a pretty like sought after transfer from Rice, because like, who wouldn't want the 6'7", 330 guy? But he had some injuries, so he just that was one of the reasons he kind of got frozen out of that offensive line.
Very cool. Very cool.
You ready to go?
Yeah, we got to go defense.
You ready to go cram the defense in real quick, because we're running out of time. We've been having a good chat. Man. Go ahead, Berto. What you got first?
Yeah, listen, defensively, wow. What the Falcons have done on defense, right? What they're standing to lose. Obviously, we already know Jalen Walker, unfortunately, is out for the year. The looming suspension of James Pierce Jr. Some say 8, some say 6. Some are making, these connections. Look at the Ray Rice situation compared to what, James Pierce Jr. did. What are you hearing? What do you think is going to be the overall slap on the wrist for James Pierce Jr., man?
And it's pure speculation on my part as well, but just in the feeling I get from having talked to people, I think 6 is the minimum. I think 6 is the minimum. I think 8 is more likely, and it could be longer. Like it could be longer. And the reason is because I think a lot of people just got their hopes up about what the suspension was going to look like after the legal stuff played out. And the legal stuff is technically not done having played out. Like he still has this year-long program. And actually, what it ended up being was a longer period of this pretrial intervention program. I remember the initial report was that it was going to be 6 months, and that would have put him at being done with it in like week 9 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now it's a full year. And but anyway, that doesn't really matter. My point is like actually the charges being dropped does not matter. Once he got into what do they call it, the player behave, whatever it is, we know he got in this cycle with the NFL. That basically triggers an all-out investigation into his background, his background with Rakia Jackson in this situation, obviously the incident itself, but they're going to look at more. And so it just depends on what they find there. But it certainly seems like there was a lot of baggage around him coming into the NFL. Some teams had red flags on him. They weren't even going to draft him because of some of this baggage. And I don't know the extent of the baggage, but it just seems to me like it's something that could come back to bite him at this point.
Okay, I'm going to just ask a quick question on him, and we can continue on with the rest of the defensive guys.
Sure.
Because we saw the previous GM, Mr. Terry Fontenot, mortgage the future on him. Like, was that the sense in the building that he was one of our top guys that we were targeting, not knowing, right, that we would trade up back into the first round to get him after Jalen Walker? But was there a sense like, yeah, we're going to take James Pierce Jr.?
I mean, if you were to ask me, I think that this team always had plans on drafting Pierce at 15. Like, I think that was their plan.
So if Jalen was gone before 15, that's the route you think they would have gone, 15?
Yes, that's exactly what I think would have happened. I think they would have just drafted him at 15. They obviously would have kept their pick for the next year. And it feels to me like, they kind of, it's been reported, they went to James Pierce Jr.'s house where he lives, or his mother's house, whatever, in Charlotte, and met with him the day before the draft. That kind of a meeting feels to me like we're going to draft you, but we're having to sit down right now to make sure that you don't that you hold up your end of the bargain, that you straighten your ass out, that you're going to ride the high and narrow, whatever they call it, whatever that phrase is. That you're going to be like a good citizen, a good football teammate, all of it. But like that was the serious conversation they were having, and then Jalen Walker falls into their lap, and they're like. And
I think hard to pass him up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
Very
they clearly
hard.
were not going to pass him up. And I think that they felt like they needed to then honor, if they were going to, again, like I'm just like purely speculating here, but just like if I were to imagine how this conversation was and they were so stern about him, but they obviously very much believed in his talent, then the straight and narrow, thank you, Rod. High and narrow, what am I saying? They clearly believed in his talent, obviously. So, like, they just felt like they needed to either, keep their word or they were just so adamant about his talent that they were going to make sure they got him. But, I feel like they kind of almost forced their own hand in that respect. That they just felt like they needed to do that. And
you got me with a follow up. So then, either honor your word or have this conviction, because it's like, we've got a pass rush, we've got to fix. We have this guy still on the board. We believe in him. We talk to him. Does it stem from missing out the year prior? That report came out that Terry was trying to trade back in for Laiatu Latu, and he wasn't given the opportunity. Like, do you think that kind of trickled in it? Like, we got our guy, like they say they got with Michael Penix Jr., but we really want to get this guy. Do you think that had something to do with it?
You know what? I never even connected the fact that previous year they were, to your point, reportedly trying to trade back up to get one of those pass rushers. Obviously, it means they clearly felt like that was an area of need for them. And I do wonder if maybe, like, even though they were very enamored with Jalen Walker, thought so highly of him, if they really felt like he was like that true, like get to the quarterback kind of pass rusher that James Pierce Jr. frankly did turn out to be. Like let's not get it wrong. Like James Pierce Jr. turned out to be basically exactly the football player that they wanted, that they were going after in that draft. And it's very unfortunate that some of the other things have really derailed his career right now. But yeah, I mean, it clearly seems to me like Terry was pretty desperate those last couple of drafts, and probably feeling the pressure of like knowing that his job was probably on the line if they didn't get that team starting winning football games again.
Whew.
And by the way, it's worth noting that like Pierce has not really elevated his standing in terms of like who he's repping with, which is basically still like the 2s and 3s, like nowhere with the 1s.
Is that by design?
Yeah, I was going to say that, but is it by design?
Definitely by design. To me, it's like it actually speaks to like the fact that they know they're not going to have him, basically. So like they need to get other guys ready. Like they need to know what their defense is going to look like.
I applaud that too.
I applaud that. Does he know that as well? I mean, does a sense like
he has to brace for that?
I mean, I'm sure they've had that conversation. Like Kevin Stefanski said, he's doing everything we're asking him. Would that be something like, hey, you're going to be with the 2s and 3s because you know what's coming?
Yes. Yeah. I think for sure he had to kind of rebuild trust within the football team. 100%, like 100%. Like somebody said it, like one of the players said it, like he needs to like kind of rebuild, reestablish trust with guys. Dorless said it. Yeah. Yep. So that's absolutely part of it. And like it's a test for a player like that who's had so many accolades and obviously is performed so well in the field, but like can you build yourself back up from nothing? Because like you're kind of doing that in your own personal life now with the legal situation you've gotten yourself into, and can it manifest on the football field as well?
Do you think him as an individual, because he's still a young man, right? He's barely 23, right? I want to say, I can't remember. 22, 23, right? I don't know what his personal life looks like, but is this someone that you could see kind of do that, build himself back up with the proper guidance? Obviously, you have a guy like Bijan Robinson on your team.
22.
You're right.
22.
I mean, he's a kid.
22.
Yeah. He's a kid that made a bad decision, right? Is this someone, right? He's at a fork in the road, right? Either you get yourself right and you have a wonderful career, you become one of the NFL greats because of what you did in your rookie year and you can continue to do that, or you fall on this other path of the big what ifs. Like, in your perspective or your opinion, I know my opinion, but do you think he could do that?
I think it's tough to tell. I think he's going to have to change. He's going to have to improve. He's going to have to improve the personal way he goes about his life if he's going to have an NFL career. If he tries to keep kind of navigating life the way that he did his rookie year, he could still perform on the football field, but eventually that flame's going to get snuffed out because it's not just about what you do on the field. It's about how you kind of live your life off the field as well. That's why all these great players are great, is because they, they're treating their bodies well. They're, just doing all the right things, basically, or most of the right things. You don't have to be perfect, and I'm not saying he needs to be that either, but he's going to have to just improve his level of professionalism in order for him to really kind of fulfill his talent, really. And I certainly hope he does, because obviously we know he's has prodigious talent and could be one of the best pass rushers in this game.
Yeah.
Sorry, Berto, I hijacked that. Go ahead.
No, you had to. It's valid. The question was valid. Now we got to ask about the Jesse Bates situation, man. How legitimately hurt is he? Is this because, man, these holdings are becoming a popular trend in the NFL now. We saw it with Bijan. We're seeing it down with Tampa Bay with Vita Vea. With Jesse Bates, obviously, the Falcons are just doling out contract extensions. He's on his last year of his deal. Obviously, the Falcons have done a fantastic job securing the core of the offense with the young guys. Jesse Bates is he's still elite. He's still young. I mean, he's still 28 years of age. He's going into his last year. What is this all coming from? What have you heard, or what do you suspect is going on truly?
Or is it a lot of nothing? Are we making something?
Where it's coming from is coming from the soulless insides of conspiracy theory. No, he was asked, Kevin Stefanski was asked directly about this the other day, and he shut it down. It was Alice Mastrangelo at WSB Channel 2 who asked, and is this related to any sort of holdout or anything? And no, like, and they were pretty open about, like, Bijan's like, it's like contract situation. It's like they were like, it's a non-football, non-injury, so, and you can like very easily suss that out. And if it was a holdout, and Kevin Stefanski comes out and says, no, it's not a holdout, well, then we would see a tweet from Adam Schefter saying that, like, source says, like Bijan Robinson's agent, or I'm sorry, Jesse Bates' agent would be like sorting that out with a national reporter, being like, no, these are our demands, or whatever it is. So it's not that. He's just, nursing an injury. And with a guy like Bates, like, do you really need him like out there on the field? I don't even mind the fact that he's missing some time and Xavier Watts is leading the pair of safeties with DeMarco Helms next to him. Because DeMarco Helms is a guy who you might be relying on at some point, and I think it's giving Xavier Watts a lot of great experience of like being like the leader of that second.
The leader, yeah. I agree.
All
with
right,
that.
I'll take my tinfoil off. My bad.
Hey, you explore every potential avenue, but sometimes it's just not. It's a dead end. So
Okay,
for sure.
Real quick, the linebacker room, right?
That's where I was going.
You reported Divine,
cool.
got rolled up on, right?
Yeah.
So it's been even more opportunity for the young bucks. Someone in the chat asked, like, what are you seeing? Kendall Daniels and Harold Perkins Jr., right? Kendall Daniels, much like Ethan Onwua, was kind of like a left field guy. Like, I did not see this one coming. And Harold Perkins Jr. was a guy that I thought, right, now that he's on my team, I'm supporting him. Obviously, I want him to do well. But when I was scouting him, I'm like,
for many other reasons too.
Right. Like, what does he do that would make you say, like, yeah, that's the guy? But from what I'm seeing in camp, it's like, okay, I was frankly wrong. Tell the audience, like, should we have that level of excitement for these two young linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I think Daniels has been more impressive to me in the last week or so because he missed so much time during the offseason program. I think he played a little bit, not even all of the rookie minicamp. And then I don't think we ever saw him during the OTA days, at least that media were able to attend, because he has been, I believe, nursing an injury. And then he said he did a press conference, and I think he was talking about his calf, and he was like,
he said tendonitis.
It's never going to be the same. he's like
everyone started freaking out, like this is who we drafted.
And I feel like ever since he said that, he's like gotten opportunities on the field. Obviously, like I said, with Divine Diablo going out, he's now wearing the green dot, and he's literally calling this defense as a rookie who's like, again, missed all this time and seems to be doing a good job of that. So really impressed with him. I don't think he practiced today, actually. So I think they are going to continue to be careful with him. Just make sure they're not like overloading him, considering he's got this tendon issue in his leg. But very impressive. And you could see like afterwards, he wasn't on my radar either, guys. And like, but then like when you see the background, you start to like put the pieces together with what Jeff Ulbrich kind of likes at that position, and you can see kind of like where the path is for him to grow as a linebacker in this league and on this team. So I'm very intrigued by him. And then obviously, Harold Perkins is a guy who he was the first one who really started like taking reps away from Christian Harris, basically, because this linebacker duo was Divine Diablo and Christian Harris throughout the entire of the summer program. And then it was Perkins who was the first one who was starting to appear at that inside linebacker spot. I'm kind of a little bit as curious as anybody else for Perkins as to like what does he look like as an NFL player, because he's obviously played in so many different types of roles for LSU. But I think that having played in so many of those roles, I think that's what actually gives him a lot of utility for Jeff Ulbrich right now, especially with Jalen Walker's injury, having him out for the year. You don't necessarily need an edge that's just going to replace Jalen Walker. You need a collection of players who can do a lot of different types of things, who you can rotate in and out and kind of, through the sum of all these parts, kind of get some version of what Jalen Walker was. And you probably won't still not replace Jalen Walker to the extent that, of the player he is. But I think that that's a reason why Harold Perkins has a lot of potential utility for this team. Yeah. Whether it's rushing the passer, whether it's as a linebacker, just being an athlete there, kind of on that edge of the defense.
I'll go out on a limb and say I think he can fill the Caden Ellis role. I think he's that instinctual right now, and he has that versatility to him. You can mug him, you can put him on the outside to rush the passer. We're talking as though this kid has a legitimate shot to start right alongside Divine Diablo when the season starts, because the assumed starter is Christian Harris, and by some accounts, Christian Harris has looked pretty good in training camp. But is it a toss of a coin? All right, we're going with Perkins, or we're going to go with Christian Harris. That's kind of where I'm at, because I don't know. I don't want to hold off on talent, especially with Perkins on the sideline. I want that day one. Let these guys grow right through the fire, man. So.
And I think
I would love to see it.
I think it kind of ties back to the conversation we were having at the beginning of this, which is like, yes, you want to be good. You want to win football games. You want to put the players out there who are going to give you the best chance to win. But if it's marginal between Harold Perkins Jr. and Christian Harris, who's on a one-year contract, maybe you lean towards the guy who's going to be under team control, who's young, who has shown all this potential, flash all this potential. Like maybe you give that guy more of a run. Maybe that's the more prudent move for the long-term health of the organization to blood that guy. Use this year to really kind of get him his reps that he needs to be successful. So I agree with you. I think Caden Ellis is a great kind of. He's not Caden. I'm not saying you're saying that either, but like that's the kind of mold he can.
That's
fit
the
into.
mold. Yes, absolutely.
And Caden was a pass rusher basically more than anything before he kind of became like a Mike linebacker. And the other thing is like Perkins has not struck. He just doesn't strike me as like small. That was like the thing about him. Is like he's so undersized. Like you can't play him up at the line of scrimmage or like this or that, but like he hasn't struck me that way. And Kevin Stefanski kind of said something the other day too. He's like, he is not a small guy. Maybe he's put on weight. I'm sure he has since he was at LSU where he was doing so many different things. But I'm really excited about Perkins, man.
Gentlemen, last time the Falcons had a rookie duo start the season. What season was that?
Oh, 2016?
Interesting.
Is that it? Is that right? Wow. Yeah, there you go.
Was
Mr. Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before they fell off the cliff. Interesting. I do want to ask one question before we wrap up the show.
Yeah.
You mentioned him. Sorry, my bad.
We're going off.
My bad. How is Jeff Ulbrich? Have you guys had a chance to kind of get close to him? I can't say I've personally lost my significant other, but I've experienced loss, and I know Berto has as well. So how is he? I'm sure he's masking it, escaping his reality there. But have you guys had a chance to talk to him?
They actually have not made him available to media yet since he's returned, and nobody's asking for him really. Not that we don't want to talk to him, obviously, but it's almost one of those things where it's like,
it's touchy.
He can talk when he wants, and like he's going to. I think he's required by the league to talk in week 1, so we'll talk to him. But I would imagine we talk to him before the season actually starts. But the thing I want to say about this is that like Brick is just like when you talk to him about who he's picking for line or like what he wants in his linebackers, or like any like football question, he just like connects with you. Like when he converses with you, like he feel like. Even though he's a big football coach and there's a room full of media, like he just like really feels like he's like talking to you and having a conversation with you when you ask that question. I think that says something special about a person who kind of can do that. And then I remember like, having long nights, there's, when we're covering the team, like the sun sets, it's dark out there and we're talking to the defensive coordinator, at 6:30 at night, in the winter. And just to think that like, he was doing that and he was like pouring into us as media, just like his ideas about what the team is doing on defense. And I always like to ask Brick just general football questions. Cause like there's some coaches, you just want to like ask them questions about football just to learn more about football. And he's such an interesting thinker of the game. I would like to do that. And then just to think that like, I'm like, man, I was like wasting his time. Like I should have like been letting him get out of there and go home to like this thing that he cares about. But he was giving so much to us. Like he would stand in there and talk for so long, and it really makes you feel even more how you feel about him and how much he connects with people. And I know the players feel that way 100,000x times because of how he is with those players inside the building, and again putting so mumuch time into them and pouring everything, like all his effort, his heart and his soul into them. And then also dealing with this in his personal life. I had no idea it was even going on. And I felt terrible, obviously, for the tragedy that happened. But I also just felt like, man, I can't even believe you were like putting up with us last year. I probably wouldn't have been as patient. I know I wouldn't have been as patient and as like kind as he was. So, it's heartbreaking. Obviously, it's like, what else can you say about it? But also I think Brick, because of everything I just described, he's probably the kind of guy who's going to like really use the team to like help build him back up, and help him like get back to normalcy. And I hate to like put it in these terms, but like I do think that it's something that like it can build the team in ways because it's just building relationships between, when you're experiencing this and you're helping somebody get through this experience, that's just going to like improve your relations, and it's going to improve how you operate on a day-to-day basis. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a tough situation, but I think the Falcons and Brick are doing as well as they possibly could be given the circumstances.
Nice. All right, Berto, my bad.
Good.
I'll give you
No,
back
no,
the
no,
lead.
no, bro. Don't ever apologize for that, man. Definitely, we don't want to keep Joe around any much longer. We're gonna wrap the show up here. So, Joe, it's the opportunity, man. We're gonna give you the platform. Please let the folks know where they can find you. Bring to light any future projects that you're working on, anything to that degree. Please let
Yeah.
the folks know.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for having me on. We'll definitely do it again at some
Absolutely.
point.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Absolutely, bleeping-lutely, we will do this
Oh,
again. And by the
man,
way,
come on.
I feel bad. I feel bad for I was supposed to be on last week, and it's just like when
It's all
training camp
good.
comes around, and it's like,
Stuff
man, like
happens,
the days
brother.
are packed, and like something came up personally. It's like, oh, I don't want to miss this. So
It's all
I
good,
had
man.
to get it in when I could.
We
and,
thank you for being here. For sure.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure.
Thank
man.
you guys. Yeah, so I've got, podcast. It's called Joe Patrick on Football, which by the way, I did not name. I had no, like, the way it works in radio is like a decision gets made, and then like 5 seconds later, they're like, what do we call it? Like, there's like basically no thing. It's like, oh, Joe Patrick on Football. So, anyways, it's like I always just joke. It's like, it passes legal. Basically, that's what they think about. So, it's called Joe Patrick on Football, but it's basically on 92.9 The Game's YouTube channel. So, I would just encourage everybody. Everybody who's listening to this is obviously a Falcons fan. So, if you're a Falcons fan, just like subscribe to 92.9 The Game, because we'll have stuff from me over there, but obviously all of our talent, our hosts, giving their opinions on the Falcons throughout the year. We kind of joke in the building. It's like there's football season, and then there's like, after football season, that's like we can talk about everybody else then. But like we're locked in on the Falcons pretty much during NFL season. So yeah, catch me over there, Joe Patrick on Football on 92.9 The Game's YouTube channel, and then at Joe Patrick on X basically is where I post most of my stuff. I'm also on Instagram at JAPatrick200, I believe. That's more of a personal kind of page, but what's the subscription? No subscriptions, just free. It's all free.
On YouTube,
Cool.
92.9.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, 929 The Game is the name of the channel to subscribe to. Yeah.
Awesome. Bro talk.
Everyone knows short form content, daily posting. I've actually narrowed it down. If you guys have been here a while, you knew I used to try and cover the entire NFL as a creator. Life has gotten way too busy, so I've narrowed it down to just the Falcons and everything there. I will eventually give my predictions on the rest of the league before the season starts. But at Dirty Bird Central, Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, right?
Thank you, Lisa.
With the preseason dropping the game, right? I'll be doing more film breakdowns at Dirty Bird Central on YouTube. So I'm eager to see what the coaching staff, right? Even though it's going to be basic, still football for the Falcons. And then on Twitter at BK2 make sure you follow, because you never know, might break some news.
Who's your source? Oh, man. As everybody already knows, man, I'm your boy Berto, host of the 95 North Falcons Talk Show, but also the other half here on Reporting Eligible that comes to you live every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Live, man. You never know who's going to show up, man, so we highly suggest you hit that subscribe button and see who our next guest will be next week. I'm sure that we'll be covering everything from the preseason going on this week. Falcons are playing this week, and we're all excited. So you'll get our candid thoughts next week, live 8 p.m. Wednesday night. But until then, enjoy the Falcons game. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Joe, thank you so much again. Peace, everybody.